examples to other believers. That's exactly what he's saying here. That is mentorship. It's in the Bible and it's biblical. So let's look forward to Elijah and Elisha. One of the things that make those guys so exciting as far as where they worked is they actually participated in some of the most amazing supernatural interventions that God's done throughout history. Now, God's a sovereign God, right? If God so desired, he could open those doors and purple unicorns could walk down here. He could do it. It's totally up to him. At various times and places in history, God has moved in different ways to do certain supernatural events, miracles, and things to that degree. And in the time of Elijah and Elisha, when they worked together, a lot of these different events happened. So it makes it exciting. So I'm going to say it's like 8,000 times today, probably. What I want you to do is your homework assignment this week is to read these passages. You're going to find them. It starts in 1 Kings chapter 17, and it goes to 2 Kings chapter 9. Again, it starts at 1 Kings chapter 17, and it goes to 2 Kings chapter 9. This is amazing. So your homework assignment would be to read about Elijah and Elisha, and you're going to love it. It's great. In history, as far as where they go, it's important to place this in time in history. So where these events happened, well, precisely 2,893 years ago. Precisely. And what happened is, this is the part of Israel. Just to give you a brief 30-second history of Israel, Israel began as a state. It actually began 5,779 years ago when Abraham was called out of Ur. And we know that because if you go to Israel today and you ask them what year it is, they're going to say it's the year 5,773, because that's how many years it's been since Abraham was called out of Ur, and God called him there. So that's how they tell years in there. So we know this. And Israel began for them, and Israel was intended by God to be what's called a theophany. God's original intention for the nation of Israel is that he was to be their ruler. That's what God wanted. That was God designed. The rest of the world can do what they want to do. God's design for Israel is to be a theophany. God ruled. They decided, and the way God did that is on earth he had different leaders for them. One particular person, he was a leader, they called him judges back then, and that was God's person to help them administer what God wanted them to do on the earth. Israel decided they wanted a king. They wanted to be like everybody else, and they wanted to have kings. That's what they wanted. And God said, no, you really don't want that. Because if you get a king, this is what's going to happen. These bad things are going to happen. Your taxes, you're going to be slave labor. It's going to be all these different bad things. You don't want a king. And Israel said, we want a king. Sometimes God gives you what you ask for, right? And guess what happened? The nation of Israel went through a lot of different turmoil. And it's important to know these passages. They fought so much, even internally, that they divided. So the nation of Israel was basically divided into two sections. Israel to the north, Judah to the south. Inside there. So it was during the divided kingdom is when Elijah and Elisha were inside there. And it's kind of interesting. Give you some thing about Elijah and Elisha that I read inside there is one of the great reasons that makes good mentorship example is that was their reputation. If you read these passages, you're going to find a couple different places where they talk about Elijah and Elisha and the reputation that they were a team. Elisha was known to be at one point serving Elijah. We know that they were a team, and it was the reputation that they were there. So Elijah preceded Elisha, and Elisha came after Elijah inside there, but there was a period of time they worked together, and they had a reputation of this. What's neat about this, and Dave and I even did this a little bit, if you take some of the greatest Bible scholars that are out there, you get John MacArthur, John Piper, a couple of other people out there, and you start talking about Elijah and Elisha, and a funny thing happens. They start going, was it Elijah who did this, or was it Elisha? Who went up in the chariot of fire thing that went up in the air? Was it? And it's kind of funny because people always get confused about who did what. Well, that's a good thing. It shows that they were known to be connected inside there. So in the English language, it helps a little bit because it's an alphabetical order, so that helps. Elijah came first, then came Elisha, alphabetical order. I can't speak for Hebrew, I can't speak for Swahili or any other language that's out there, but at least in English, we know that they're in alphabetical order. Another thing that makes them a little bit confusing is there's a number of things that they both did together. or they both did. Both of them participated in the calling and ending of a famine. Both of them did. They also were supported by a woman. Elijah was supported by a poor woman who came to him and said, all I have is just enough oil and just enough cake to feed myself and my son, and then we're going to die. And Elijah goes, why don't you make me a meal? And then whatever's left over, you can feed your son. And her oil and meal never went away. It was great, terrific. So Elisha was also supported by a woman at one point. They both raised a dead boy back to life. So the same young boy that Elijah, his mother had supported them with the bread, the oil and the bread to feed them with. Her son had died. Elijah brought him back to life, and Elisha did another similar thing. Another thing about it too, they both relied heavily on the servant. Elisha's servant was named Gehazi. There's different servants that they different had through the year, but they relied heavily on the servant. Matter of fact, Elisha did something that was really weird, but it makes for a great story in the Bible. You got to read it. Elisha actually sent a servant to anoint Jehu, the king of Israel. I mean, if you're anointing a king, isn't this a grand event? I mean, what do you think? This is a big deal. It's going to be all over the internet. It's going to be on the front page of the paper. It's going to be everywhere. Anoint a king. So what Elisha did is he sent a servant and said, hey, here's some oil, and this is what I want you to do. I want you to pull up your robe, tuck it in, and I want you to run. This is the house that Jehu's in. You're going to run in the front door. There's going to be people everywhere. You're going to get Jehu. You're going to pull the side into a room. And I want you to put this on him, anoint him. And then I want you to run out of that room and get back here very, very quickly. And so the servant grabbed a bundle of oil and he pulled his robe up and he ran. He ran in this house. He ran to the front room. He found Jehu. He said, Jehu, come here, grab it. And they go inside another room really quick. I'm going to put some oil on you, rub it a little bit. Hey, guess what? You're the king of Israel. And then he took off running out the door. So much so, you got to read this, it's great, that everybody in the house is going, Jehu, what was that? And Jehu literally said, you know those guys. That's one of Elisha's guys. You know, they're nuts. No, if he come running in this fast and running out that fast, something's up. What's up? It's just this little thing. He just anointed me king of Israel. Just a little minor thing. And then they all bowed to him and everything. But it's just interesting that Elisha sent one of the servants to anoint Jehu, the king of Israel, and that's how it happened. So what I got to do when I do this, part of me says, okay, talk about Elijah and Elisha. They're going to read it and then take what you learn from them. But I can't do that. These events are so good, and so many things, great things happen in those. I have to talk about them a little bit, just so you can get an idea of what's going on inside here. So Elijah, we're going to start with him because he came first. So what's neat about Elijah, there's a lot of things. His ministry started by announcing to King Ahab that there's going to be a famine for 3 years. What a great way to start. And also, you need to know about Ahab, because Ahab's a little bit of a different guy. When you read these books of history, the Bible will talk about a king, and when it mentions his name, it usually has a little segment after. He did good in the sight of God. Or it might say, he did evil in the sight of God. This king did good in the sight of God. This king did evil in the sight of God. But when it comes to Ahab, it actually elaborates on it. It says, not only did Ahab do evil in the sight of God, there was no other king that ever came after him and did more evil than he did. He was a bad, bad guy. So that's Ahab. So just keep that in mind inside there. So Elijah walks in and says, oh, Ahab, you brought foreign idols to worship. You tore down Israel's ability to worship God, and you brought all these foreign idols to worship. So 3 years of famine, boom, gone. So Elijah takes off, and he does take off. Matter of fact, one thing we'll know about Elijah, he was a bit riddled with fear. So he takes off, he runs, and he goes hides by a brook somewhere. And God fed him, he took care of him. He sent ravens every morning. Ravens would go to Tim Hortons or something like that, and they would get bread, and they would fly it to him. At night, they would get meat, and they would fly it to him. And that's how he was able to hide and never get caught. So Elijah, I don't know how he moved and not be able to keep for 3 years. Now think about this a little bit. Keep in mind when we talk about famines, having been in Israel and knowing the land and the territory this was. Israel's an amazing country. To the north, it's very high. The south is very low, the lowest in the world. So the nation of Israel kind of goes like this. Jerusalem's about right here, and this area in the middle is extremely fertile land. Great growth, great tropics, great everything right here. This is where they are inside here. So there's a famine here. Okay? Now if there's a famine down here, that would make sense. That's the desert area. But up here, very, very good. This is where they were, inside there. So there's a famine, 3 years. And it talks about, so crops, no crop for 3 years. Lots of their animals are dying. They're trying to dig any well they can or find anywhere they can go for water. So imagine, can you just imagine, how do you think Ahab's feeling right about now? Is he a little upset? Is he a lot upset? He's very upset. Very, very upset. And then one day, towards the end of the 3 years, Elijah comes out and he's walking around and he sees a guy named Obadiah. Now, Obadiah was kind of an important type of a character. He actually served in King Ahab's kingdom. He was a leader there, but he was also a follower of God. He was a believer. So what he did is he wanted to make sure that he protected the prophets. So there was lots of different prophets. Even though Elijah was the main prophet of God, he didn't have to do everything. There's lots of other, I don't even call them middle management, helpers, whatever he wanted to do. So there's lots of other prophets in the land that they're not Elijah. So Ahab kind of wanted these guys killed. Right? Look what Elijah did. He called for famine. They got a famine. Let's kill all of his followers. Anybody that would serve with him. So Obadiah took 100 of these prophets, hid 50 in one cave, hid 50 in another, and spent his own time, his own money, his own energy, keeping these guys safe and feeding them the whole 3 years in this process of trying to protect them in that. So Elijah comes out and he sees Obadiah. Obadiah, oh, hey, how you doing? Shaking hands and things like that. Elijah says, hey, could you do me a solid favor? Why don't you go back to Ahab and tell him I want to see him? And Obadiah says, are you kidding me? Like, since you've been gone, Ahab has taken every general that comes to his thing and made them swear that they haven't seen you. Because if anybody swears that they've seen you and they didn't kill you, will be killed. Ahab wanted Elijah's head those whole time. And Obadiah said, no, I don't think I'm going to do it. I think you should do it. Elijah finally does. Elijah walks into Ahab's thing and says, hey, remember me? Hey, guys! This is the point in time where Elijah says, here, Ahab, this is what I want you to do. I want you to get 450 of your best Baal servants, right? That was their false god. That was the guy who got false god that they worship. Go bring them out to Mount Carmel. Take them out to Mount Carmel, and we're going to have a contest. We're going to see who the true God is. So they went to Mount Carmel, and they made an altar. They put down the sacrifice, and they let Baal's false guys go first. And they went and they cried, oh, Baal, please accept this altar. Please accept the sacrifice to prove that, oh, Baal, you're the right guy. Nothing happens, nothing happens, nothing happens. And the whole day goes on. As a matter of fact, Elijah, even though he might have been a fearful guy, I think he had a sense of humor. At one point he goes, hey, false prophets of Baal, maybe Baal's not hearing you. Maybe you need to yell louder. Maybe you need to cut yourself more. And he actually implies, maybe he's in the little false god's bathroom. Maybe you need to yell louder. Maybe he's sleeping. And so he picks on him. He humiliates him. And all there, all day long, the false prophets of Baal are trying to get Baal to ignite this altar. And then they finally give up, and they're bloody, they're bleeding, they're exhausted. Elijah comes up and says, oh, before we start, we've got this altar here. Let's dose it with water. Now, what's going on right now? Famine. So you can see the Mediterranean Sea from the top of Mount Carmel. It's a ways out there. I want to know where they get this water from. I've been there, and I've seen this, so he has them get water. And then he tells them, do it again. And they get water from somewhere, and they pour it out again. So much so that there was trenches around it, all filled with water. So this place is so... And Elijah literally stands back and says, this is the time and this is the place for the one true God to make himself known. Boom! Fire from heaven devours everything. The altar's gone, the stones are gone, the sacrifice is gone, everything's gone inside there. And Elijah goes out and has 450 false prophets of Baal, has them all killed. What a great victory. What would you have acted like at this point in time? I mean, would you be like a Super Bowl victor, jumping and shouting and everything? Yeah! Pew, 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 I don't know. I probably would have been jumping and shouting. What a great victory. One of the most monumental victories on the face of the earth. Next to the resurrection of Jesus Christ, of course. But this is huge, guys. This is big. So all of this happens, and then the next thing that happens is just a little odd. Jezebel, which is Ahab's wife, not a good girl, by the way, bad girl, she says, and it's interesting, she says, I'm going to gather the strength of all the false gods that are out there, and we're going to kill you, Elijah. And after all this victory, Elijah, what does he do? He runs in fear. He's scared, and he takes off. It's just mind-bending that he did these different things. And then, I love this one. And this is where this all ties together. There was something called the incident. In the Bible, it talks about the incident of Naboth's vineyard. If you're not familiar with Naboth's vineyard, I'll try to be brief on this one. But in a nutshell, so Ahab, matter of fact, we've been to where his castle was, or his kingdom was. We have a picture of Israel when we were there, of Dave Cook actually standing right where his throne was. It's really hot. Like, this was where Ahab's throne was. You can stand there, and you can see these things. It's pretty amazing. So right next to that, there's a vineyard, a beautiful vineyard, belonged to a guy named Naboth, and Ahab kind of wanted it. Matter of fact, he did want it. So he sent his people to say, Naboth, how much money for your vineyard? Naboth's like, this is my only inheritance. This is all my family has. This is it. I can't sell it to you. I won't sell it to you. So Ahab's all out. Now, ladies, what do those guys do when we don't get our way? Do we shrug it off or do we pout a lot? Go ahead, ladies. You pout. I mean, okay, here you go. That's ladies speak. Men pout a lot. Okay, Ahab's no different than the rest of us. He's pouting, and Jezebel says, I got this. Just sit back. I got this. So she has this big dinner. She calls Naboth in. And in the middle of the dinner, she has two people stand up and start pointing and yelling at Naboth and saying, you said bad things about God, or you said bad things about whatever else, and we're going to kill you. And they killed him. And so Ahab went around and, hey, we got this vineyard, and the guy's not alive anymore. I think take it for mine. Interesting. So that was the incident in Naboth's vineyard. Well, Elijah shows up. Elijah says to him, hey, God saw what you did, and a couple things are going to happen. First of all, your wife Jezebel is going to die in the same place that Naboth did. The next thing that's going to happen is when Jezebel died, her body was licked up by a bunch of dogs. Those same dogs are going to also lick your blood. That's what he had to say about it. This is about the incident in Naboth's vineyard inside there. And he also predicted how Ahab was going to die. He said, another thing too, he said, by the way, Ahab, your children will never inherit your throne. So a lot of things that Elijah had to say about there, in there. And so a lot of things were happening. And where this ties into mentorship too is, I got to talk to you a little bit about Micaiah. Does anybody know about Micaiah? Has anybody ever heard of Micaiah? I know some of these stories are a reminder of great Sunday school lessons you guys have had in the past. But in all of this, I'm really curious. Has anybody ever heard of Micaiah? Oh, yes. Congratulations. Good. We got somebody here. So Micaiah was a prophet. He wasn't Elijah. He wasn't Elisha. And I got thinking, at first I kind of bounced over this a little bit because he wasn't Elijah, he wasn't Elisha. But isn't it true that in the work of the Lord, even if you have a couple, two people doing great things, does that mean that's the only person God will use? No. No, God can call somebody else to do it. So here's the story of Micaiah where he comes up. Even though Israel at times and places was a divided nation, at various times they would cooperate with each other. So the king of Israel to the north gets Ahab, the king of Judah, to the south, and says, hey, let's go invade this country. Let's go invade this country. And Ahab's like, sure, why not? I don't think Ahab was the smartest guy in the world when you read this. Sure, why not? What could possibly go wrong, right? So they get together, they go to head out to war, and the king of Israel to the north says, before we do this, maybe we should inquire of one of those, what would they call them? Men of God, right? Do you have any men of people who follow God? And they have, yeah, there's a few. And so Micaiah's name came up. And so Micaiah happened to be in the area, so they went to go see Micaiah to find out, should we go into this war? How should we handle this war? And Ahab was not all thrilled. Ahab, he did an eye roll. Talk to anybody, but don't talk to Micaiah. Anytime I've ever asked Micaiah about anything, ever, he always has told me no. Never. It's always no. So they bring in Micaiah, and they sit down with him and they say, so, we two kings want to get together, and we want to go invade this country. Will God be for us, or will God be against us? Should we go? And Micaiah says, it's in there, it's great. He said, sure. And Ahab literally goes, wait for it. And Micaiah says, sure, if you want to take all your soldiers and get them killed and wiped out. And Ahab's like, there it is. Micaiah told him no. But guess what? They went together, they did it. As a matter of fact, Ahab had plan B. Any good king should have a plan B, right? So, I know I didn't think Ahab was the smartest guy in the world, but maybe the king of Israel was less smart than Ahab was. Ahab had this great idea. He says, when we go in this battle, we're going to go anyways, no matter what Micaiah said. But here's what. So, king to the north, you stay in the kingly road, and you stay in your kingly chariot, and you go this way. Have guards go with you. I'm going to go in disguise, and I'm going to go this way. I mean, if you're trying to take over king, wouldn't you chase the king? So Ahab's over here, and everything was going great. Everything was going tremendous. Everything was going fine. And they were chasing the king, and Ahab was just... He's in the back of the chariot, he's just kind of looking around. The whole war is going over there, just going around nice and slow, and Ahab is just doing whatever. And in the scriptures, I love how it says it. It says, but someone. Anytime the Bible says, but someone, something's about to happen, right? So some doofus, I don't know who he was or what he was doing, he was for the other team, and he takes the bow and an arrow, and he just randomly shoots it. Who randomly shoots an arrow in war? I mean, wouldn't you want to shoot at your enemies? He just sends one flying. Just sends a random arrow, flying. Guess what? It hits Ahab right between the shield. He's bleeding, he's dying. They take him up there, and he dies during the battle, as it was predicted by Elijah. And so he's dead in this battle, and they washed his blood out at the same place at the pool, and the dogs licked up his blood inside there. So that's how King Ahab died, inside there. But it's just, Micaiah was God. He was neat. So that was some of the history of Elijah. And there is more that you'll need to read. So with Elisha, he all starts with the time when they actually overlap a little bit. So Elijah was the prophet, and at some point in time, and I got to tell you this to put it into context inside there. One of the things that happened during this time is Elijah and Elisha must have known that Elijah was going to be taken to heaven. I don't know how God told them. I don't know what it was, but God led them to cross the Jordan together. So Elijah, Elisha, and also we know that a bunch of the other prophets of God that were with them followed them down. So what they're doing is they're going to this little place called Jericho, and they're going west. Then you get to the Jordan River. Once they got to the Jordan River, Elijah takes off his robe, strikes the Jordan River parts in two. The two gentlemen walk over to the other side together, the Jordan River closes. The rest of the prophets are to the west of the Jordan River, but they can see everything. They can watch what's happening. So they're walking along, and part of all of this is Elijah asks Elisha, do you have any final requests for me? Elisha says, I do have a final request for you. However God was with you, as much as God was with you, I pray that God's with me double whatever he was with you. Whatever blessing you had, as much as God was with you, I pray that it's double with me. At that moment in time, as they're speaking, the heavens part, fire comes from heaven, picks up Elijah. Literally, it says it divided them in two. Like they're standing next to each other, picks them up too. Elijah probably jumped this way. Elijah goes straight up to heaven, his mantle comes down, and in a chariot of fire of whatever, it's just brought right up to heaven. The whole group can see it. Not only the two of them, but also the other prophets on the other side. See the whole event happen. He's taken to heaven. Elijah never dies. He's brought up to heaven in this whirlwind of fire. Wow. Elisha pulls himself together, picks up the mantle, goes back to the Jordan, strikes the Jordan River parts, he walks over. This is great symbolism that God is with Elisha. So there's no debate, there's no question. All the other prophets, the nation of Israel knows God's succeeding prophet is Elisha. Here he is. Now this is really interesting because things don't go starting well for him. So Elisha, imagine what it would be like for him. I just been at this event. This just happened. I've got the mantle. I'm wearing it. And Elisha was probably a humble person. I don't think he walked around like, I don't think he did that. He came over, he met the group of people, and let's go, right? I've been anointed as the next prophet of God, let's go. And then a funny thing happens. The prophets that are over there who witnessed all of this raise their hand. Right? Before we go, I've got a question. Elisha's like, what's your question? Can we go back over the Jordan River and look for Elijah? Because maybe he didn't really go up in the flame. Maybe he fell. Maybe he's hiding. Maybe it was a trick. Can we go look for him? Really? Can you imagine what Elisha? He left. They kept on bugging him. Let's go look for Elijah. And I bet you the Jordan River didn't part. That should have been one thing. They had to cross the Jordan River on their own. And those guys went to look for Elijah. Now, what was Elisha thinking? You know, Elisha sat there waiting for them. Outside Jericho, he sat there waiting for them for 3 days. 3 days. He waited for them. And finally those guys come back and they announce, they literally took the time. Elisha, I got to tell you something. We didn't find him. Really? It's the first face palm of the Bible. You can just see like, you know. And so things didn't start out great for Elisha. 3 days he had to wait for all these people, the guys go look for Elijah. It's just, what was going on? And then I got to share this with you. This is a bit personal, but I got to share this with you. If you're in your scriptures, we're going to go to 2 Kings in a little bit here. I'll talk about it a little bit. You know, some places in the Bible, they just hit people harder than others. It's like the Holy Spirit just drives the spiritual truth to you that doesn't always apply to everybody. It just speaks to you in ways. And this just got to me so much so that I just had to share this with you. So in 2 Kings chapter 2, verses 23 through 25, we'll read what happens with Elisha. So this just means so much to me. I'll share it with you. So this is, it's on page 291 of our Bibles, but 2 Kings 2, 23 through 25. It says here, from there Elisha went up to Bethel. As he was walking along the road, some boys came out of the town, and they jeered at him. "Get out of here, Baldy!" They said. "Get out of here, Baldy!" He turned around and he looked at them and he called down a curse upon them in the name of the Lord. And then 2 bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the boys. So you can see why this means a lot to me. You don't mess with a bald guy. It's in the Bible, it's in the scripture. God loves the bald guys, right? Yeah, God loves the bald guys. So that meant a lot to me. I just wanted to share that with you inside. So Elisha, there's a whole lot more that Elisha did, but for the sake of time, I can't hit everything inside there. But I want to talk about, the rough start that he had and just some of the other things that you may or may not remember from the scriptures inside here. But I want to talk about the famine of Samaria, that was inside here. Now, again, Samaria, this is even a little bit north of Jerusalem. So Jerusalem, wherever it is inside in Israel, it's an elevated city. It's up on a hill, it's raised, and that's the way Jerusalem was. If you go down to the north a little bit, it's Samaria. Samaria is one of the most beautiful places of Israel. Okay? It's fertile, it's got lots of plants, lots of growth. The Mediterranean Sea to the west, there's a lot of water that comes through it. Matter of fact, to the north, the furthest north you go in Israel, there's Mount Hermon. It's way, way up there, covered with snow, and all the water drains from there. It goes right down the hill, right down to Israel. It's just absolutely wonderful. So for there to be a famine in Samaria, that's a big deal. And it was bad. So this is a different famine. This isn't the same one it was that Elijah did. But this is right in the area of Samaria. And it was so bad. The famine was horrible. As a matter of fact, there was a king of the east. His name was Ben-Hadad. He was the king of Ammon. And what he did going to be easy pick. These people are dying, they have no food, they have no water, there's a famine. It's just as bad as it can be. Matter of fact, what it says about that is it says for 80 shekels of, I can't remember if it was gold or whatever it was, a lot of money, you could buy a donkey head. That's how bad the famine was. All your net worth, all your money, and you could buy a donkey head. Anybody ever donkey head before? You must have, Jeff. No? No? Anybody? Donkey
Not
head?
yet.
Would you pay a lot of money for donkey head? Yeah. So you can see how bad this famine was. So this king is coming through town. He's coming through there, and he sees this lady on the side of the road. She recognizes him as somebody who has some form of authority. And when you're in desperate times, you'll do anything to try to help. You'll do anything to try to help. And this woman was destitute. She's begging for help. And he finally says, now this is a foreign king, by the way. Keep this in mind. Lady, what do you want? And she says to him, you need to help me. I have a friend, and yesterday we agreed to cook the remains of my boy, and we ate them. We agreed that we would eat my boy yesterday, and today we're going to cook the remains of her child, and we're going to eat him today. But she hid the body. Can you go get her to go get that son so we can cook him and have something to eat? Think about how awful this is. Now this foreign king sees what's happening, and he's torn over what happened, and he's torn in anger, and he says, I want Elisha, and I want him dead now. Now. And he tells his people, he says, whoever his people are, this foreign king, I want you to run to Elisha's place, and I want you to bring him to me, and I want his head, and I want it now. Now, an amazing thing happened when you read that. Elisha also had servants in the area, and they thought, we better be faster than those guys. So there's literally a foot race running through to wherever Elisha was staying. So Elisha's in a house someplace with more of Elisha's prophets, and there's a group of people running, and hopefully Elisha's people are faster than his people. And apparently they were. They got there first. They run in the house. They close the door. They're holding the door shut. So Ben-Hadad's people are literally trying to force themselves in. And Elisha says something really interesting. He says, hey guys, he says to them, it ain't a thing. Don't worry about it. Tomorrow you're going to be able to buy loaves and loaves of bread for just nothing. Don't worry about this. This isn't a thing. And Elisha's servants are just freaking out. You realize, you see what we're doing? We're holding the door closed to people that want to kill you. And you said something like that? And Elisha says, yeah. He says, tomorrow, everything's going to be dirt cheap. Plenty of food, plenty of water to drink. And these guys don't believe it. One particular person holding the door closed says, no, not going to happen. And Elisha says to him, hey, you're not going to partake of it. The rest of us tomorrow, we're going to eat well. So what was going on right now that God did? This is the place and time where while this is happening, there are 4 lepers. Lepers are not allowed to be in town, so there would have been 4 lepers from Samaria, and they basically had no food, they had no water, they had nothing, and they're dying. They basically thought, you know what, we might as well give it a chance. We'll go to the foreign king's army, and we're going to go to their gate and see if they have any waste food that they would allow us to eat. Maybe they may have some, and some. And what happened is they got to where it was, and the entire camp of all that king's people were gone. I mean gone. Matter of fact, they left so fast, and this is one of the miracles that God did. I don't know what God did to them, but whatever God did to them, he scared the living daylights out of all of those soldiers. It says that they were so scared and they ran so much that all those soldiers took off their armor and ran naked. So there's all these soldiers on all their armor just laying around. 4 lepers realize there is food everywhere. So they spend a day just eating and eating and eating, and these lepers basically realize, wait a minute, our hometown is dying, and we're sitting here with all this food. And just as Elisha had said, the very next day, all of Samaria was able to buy bread for pennies because of this. Elisha was right because he obeyed God, and God told him what was going to happen. And all those soldiers were there, except for the guy that was holding the door closed who didn't believe him. He didn't eat. Matter of fact, I think he was killed. But there's so much more that happened. I do ask that you read these passages inside there. Because there's things that I didn't even talk about. These are just a few. This is like a prequel of everything that's inside here. So what I want to do is give you just a quick picture of Elijah and Elisha. I want to go over a few observations and next steps for you. So one thing that I did when I looked at Elijah and Elisha is number one, is these guys never served in a safe environment. When it comes to mentorship, when it comes to influence, it's easier to do when everything's easy. When there's no problems, there's no contentions, there's no strife, there's no anything. But what would it be like if you were mentoring somebody in an unsafe environment? Now, I tried to give you a good picture of where these guys served with King Ahab. They were under King Ahab and all these different things. They were not in a safe environment. So, what about us? What about we do? We have this little saying that we do around here called run to the mess. So, if we have the ability to influence somebody, we don't stop first and look at and evaluate, is this going to be an easy situation or is this going to be a messy situation? If it's going to be easy, I'm all in. If it's going to be a mess, I don't want to. We don't want to ask that question. If God is asking us to influence somebody else, we're going to run to the mess. It doesn't matter whether the environment is great or the environment is bad. We don't want to worry about serving. So these guys did not serve in a safe environment, and we shouldn't do that. Another thing that I want to share with you here is from Elisha. This really meant a lot to me. So we're going to turn to page 285. It's 1 Kings chapter 19. What I love about Elisha is he walked away from his security to serve. He walked away from his security to serve. Let's read this one here. First Kings 19. So here it is, 1 Kings 19, verse 19. So Elijah went from there and found Elisha, the son of Shaphat. He was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen, and he himself was driving the 12th pair. Elijah went up to him, and he threw his cloak around him. Elisha then left his oxen and ran after Elijah. Let me kiss my father and mother goodbye, he said, and then I will come with you. Go back, Elijah replied. What have I done to you? Now get this. So Elisha left him and he went back. He took his yoke of oxen and he slaughtered them. He burned down his plowing equipment to cook the meat, and he gave it to all the people, and they ate there. And then he sent after Elijah to become his servant. So Elisha was a farmer. He was doing pretty well, and he had his own people, he had his own oxen, he had his own equipment, he had all of this inside there. You realize what he did? He gave away his security. Because if things don't work great with Elijah working with him, I've always got my fallback, my farm. Well, he proverbially burned the bridges behind him, burned the ships. Think about that for a minute. Anything that was security for him, anything that would make him feel safe, he burned it. He got rid of it. He broke the ties. And it's just interesting that he walked away from security to serve. And I ask that about us. If God's asking us to do something, are we willing to do it a little bit as long as we don't leave what's secure to us? If God ever asks us to leave our security, to leave what's safe, to leave what would keep us around, what would sustain us, to do for something like Him, that'd be a difficult thing to do. Elisha walked away from the security to be able to do that in there, and it's just something we can learn from there. The next one about great leaders. Great leaders come from the humblest servants. You'll read multiple times in these stories inside there that Elisha was known as a servant of Elijah. At one point in time, one of the foreign people that aren't even part of Israel referred to Elisha as, oh, I know him. He's the man that washes the hands of Elijah. He was his servant. Elisha became a great, great leader. How did he become a great leader? He became a great leader by focusing on being a humble servant. We live in a world where the secular world we live in is constantly telling us, be number one. You need to be stronger. You need to be the best. Focus on you. Well, that's not the method of Jesus. Jesus became the humblest of all servants. And I think that's what we should strive to do when we see this. We should strive to be the humblest of all servants. It doesn't matter where we serve. It doesn't matter who we serve. I think we should have an attitude of being a humble servant. No matter who we can serve or how we can serve, it doesn't matter. What it means to us, it doesn't matter who sees us. We just want to be the humblest of servants. So that's a third observation inside here. The last one that I want to show you about is mentors have their faults. If you have the capacity to mentor a younger believer, I don't want you to think, well, I'd be willing to do that, Andy. I'd be willing to volunteer for that, but I need to get some things right in my life first. I need to make sure that I've got everything going right for me. Then I can mentor somebody. And I say no, no, and okay? Don't do it. Matter of fact, in James 5:17, that's on page 980 in the Bibles. James 5:17 James says, Elijah was a human being, even as we are. Even as we are. He prayed earnestly that it would not rain, and it did not rain on the land 3.5 years. Again, he prayed, and the heavens gave rain, and the earth produced his crops. I think the reason that this verse starts, Elijah was a human being as we are, is because it's well documented what Elijah's faults were. He was a fearful person. He ran scared. Okay? But he was still a mentor to Elisha. He was a mentor to many other people inside that. So mentors have their faults, and we need to remember that in both ways. So if I'm mentoring somebody, and there's a person that I'm thinking of right now, right? So I'm having an intentional influence on somebody else's life. Okay? I've made a decision. I am going to have an intentional influence on somebody else's life, and I've made myself available to that person. Okay? My message to that person, I will blow it. Right? I will mess up. So the person who's looking at me, looking up to me, please understand that your mentor is not perfect. If you're the mentor and you're looking at somebody, come on. Just be open. Just be real to those person. Just be who you are. Don't think you've got to be perfect to be a mentor. That's not the way God designed us. Nobody's perfect inside of it, but don't let that stop you from reaching out to somebody and influencing them. So those are some observations that I came up with from Elijah and Elisha. So what about you? What's your next step? There's 4 things that I'd like you to consider. Number 1, pray. My goal for you after this talk is I want everybody to pray. Take some time this week, spend some time with God in prayer, and pray. God, if I can influence somebody, let me know who that person is. Bring somebody to me. Dear God, I'm a person who needs, I don't care where you are in your spiritual walk, you need somebody to look up to. Find out who that person is and let God do that. I know God will answer that prayer. I can't see God ever hearing a prayer like that, a heartfelt prayer from one of you thinking, thank you, but I can't think of anybody right now. I'll get back to you if I do. I don't believe for a second God would ever do that. If we pray that prayer with a partner, somebody that I can influence or somebody that I could influence with that, God will answer that prayer. So number 1 was pray, number 2 was connect. So the Christian life wasn't meant to be done on your own. Connect, connect, connect. One of the greatest places for you to make a great connection is a small group. If you're not involved in a small group, I encourage you to do so. I have seen mentorship connections start in seconds. I was in a small group one time, and we had a person come. He was, I don't even know if he was a believer or a young believer. I don't know where he stood in his walk. He opened up and said, this is my problem. I watched a godly man from this church walk over, sat down, put his arm around him, start praying with him, creating a mentoring situation. I watched it happen in seconds. They connected. Okay? We need to connect. So if there's a project going on in church, come out to it. Just make a connection, do something. Small groups are a great person to do that. Mentorship happens openly when we all open ourselves up. So the first one is pray, the second one is connect, the third one is serve. Okay? Serve somewhere. That will help you in your spiritual walk. That will help you make better connections. We have opportunities at OI Community Church. We just got done with a series that created that environment. This is a lot of what we do here at our church, is creating environments that open up and allow people to serve inside there. So find a place to serve. And the last thing I would like to ask you to do is keep your eyes open. Just keep your eyes open. Look around you, folks. No matter what you're doing, whether you're here in the service, whether you're singing, whether you're working somewhere, look around you guys. Keep your eyes open. Look for someone who needs help, someone that you can mentor. If you need to be mentored, look around. Find someone who's spiritually stronger than you and look up to them. I came up with this saying, I don't know if it's profound or not, but it stuck in my head. I wrote down, you can't see what you're not looking for. You can't see what you're not looking for. So are we, as followers of Christ, are we actively looking around us, looking for people who need to be mentored, looking for people who need a connection? I'm just asking you, keep your eyes open and look what's around you. We're trying to create an environment of connections to people. That's a lot what we do here. So we'll finish up here, but I just got to say, lastly, is that if anybody here who wants to pray about this, we're going to have people up front here, that if anybody wants to pray with somebody up front, the altar is always open afterwards to talk to. I'll be out in the lobby. Just make a connection with somebody. We can pray for you for that. And we just want to let you know that we're always here. So let's stand and pray.